I'm talking today to Joris Komen. Joris, there's a particular problem with vultures in Namibia and more broadly in sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
They're being poisoned as an indirect result of poaching incidents of rhinos and elephants in most parts of southern Africa now. And the problem we face now is that vultures who come to carcasses of animals will alert the officials, and the Ministry of Environment officials in particular, to a poaching incident by them flying over and around the carcass that is passed on. Poachers are now using organo-phosphates that are readily purchased out of over-the-counter from farming sales outlets to poison those carcasses so that the vultures die when they actually take food from those carcasses, and that prevents obviously people seeing the vultures and therefore seeing the poaching incident. That's coupled with the fact that vultures now are also going to carcasses that have been killed with poison that is being used to kill elephants as well. So things like cyanide and other dreadful poisons are now being used to kill things like elephants and rhinos and so on, and it's just one big mess generally. And
you've set up an online platform.
Yeah, well, we've used a generously an online platform called Ushahidi, a crowd map environment which is open source, which we've used now to engage community online and offline through this crowd map, which is actually a mapping, a very basic mapping system that allows us and allows people to go online and record an event or a sighting of an animal or any kind of incident basically. But we've adapted this particular software to allow people, tourists in particular, to record sightings of vultures that have been tagged with numbers that we then can bring down to identifying individual vultures and knowing exactly where their roots are, where they were hatched, where they came out of nests, and then get a better sense of their overall dynamics, their biology, their movements.
And previously, only 1% of tagged vultures had been, in a sense, seen again.
Largely because there wasn't really any kind of social media engagement with people to make them aware of what these vultures were all about. And I mean, I think vultures have been ringed, as many other birds have been ringed and tagged or banded, as they say in America, for scientific purposes. So getting people involved in recording or reporting resightings or recoveries in the case of dead birds with rings on has largely been the domain of science, and trying to get a concerned community that is concerned about the conservation issues around vultures being poisoned or other birds being threatened by issues with damage to the environment, I think is the reason why we're now using this particular tagging system and getting people to use social media and using in particular this Ushahidi crowd map for vulture resightings actually makes for a far better return on that investment of putting rings and tags on birds and then expecting some sort of recovery down the line. Less than 1% is normal for resightings, revisits, recoveries of dead birds usually, or resighted birds when it comes to tags. In the case of this crowd map, we're now seeing in the order of 6 to 7% recovery, resightings of birds with tags on. So it's making a difference in terms of our overall knowledge of these birds in southern Africa at this stage.
And you're using Facebook. Who is the community you're aiming to ask to put the sightings in?
Anybody and everybody, but largely through Facebook, through Twitter, through a whole range of other outlets. The adventure tourism that happens, tour guides that bring out tourists to look at predators taking out carcasses, and then obviously anybody that travels in southern Africa and East Africa who sees a vulture with a tag on. We try to mediate with them through diverse media. So in other words, it's whether it's social media per se like Facebook and Twitter, but also obviously regular media, conventional media as well.